Welcome to Qt Widgets and More. In today's episode, I'm going to attack submodules. I'm going to make some sense out of it. What happens when both the submodule and the super project are evolving and new version comes around? And if you just Googled and you dumped into this video, well, welcome. Just stay noted that I'm not going to help you neither with your Kotlin nor with your C# problems. This is usually about Qt, but we'll just take a small detour here. So one of the really annoying things about Git submodules is the error message you get ever so often. Hey, you have a change to that file. I just checked out another revision of my project, and now you claim that I have changes to my submodules. I'll show you how to solve that towards the end of this video. But first, we will look at when several people are working on the project at the same time. And I'm not going to go to KD algorithms and make 200 commits just for this video here. That would annoy those people actually using KD algorithms now. No, I will simply create a new version of KD algorithms on my system using git init --bear. And so the script start. If you didn't watch the previous episode, it's just a simple script for me to execute a bunch of commands without actually typing them because I'm so bad at this. As I said, we'll start out nuking the world here. So now we have a clean slate again. Temp git submodule, that's where everything's going on. And in case you forgot already from last week, this is just the number of my command. This is the path relative to, well, my playground, as you can see here. And this is the command I'm about to execute. And as I said, I'll just create kdalgorithm.git --bear to set up this. So Jesper will, that's me talking about myself in third person. Yes, I do that from time to time. He will create this algorithm here. It will complain something about the name of the master branch. That's okay. And I'll clone that into the Jesper here. So I've got a few people now in this script. We have Jesper, Kirsi, Nono, and Kevin, and they all help me out here with supplying their faces for the script, simply because there's going to be so many different things going on here, and to avoid confusion, I have names on it. So Jesper, that's the guy that's actually developing, which is in reality too, namely KD algorithms. So Jesper is in here. He goes into this one, and as I said, it's just a simulation of what's going on in the real repository. So Jesper, he create in here echo, we can now sort things into the README file. He add that, he commits that, and he pushes that. So that went from kdalgorithm.-jesper over to kdalgorithm.git, which is our simulated server. Kirsi comes around now. She wants to create an application, and that application should, of course, use KD algorithm. So we'll go out here again. Kirsi runs the git init -bear. So she's creating the server equivalent of her application. She clones it into a directory called KD application, or KD application, my application -Kirsi. She goes into that one and she adds a submodule just as we saw in the previous episode. Yeah, it's going to say this stuff here. And that's because the security issue on my Ubuntu. If you run this git config -whatever, it's really just about making a submodule out of something that's a file, which you would usually not do. But I'm just explaining it here just in case that you are trying to mimic these steps at home, or at work, or at your local spa. Whatever. Git configs this stuff here, and my submodule add now works. And she makes a very first version, my application, with sorting. She pushes that, and that went up to the server. And again, the server is just the .git file in the root directory. My application.git to be accurate. Okay, so far so good. Jesper created KD algorithm. Kirsi cloned KD algorithm. Now Jesper will modify KD algorithm, and Kirsi wants to get those modification out, but it's not as straightforward as it sounds. So let's see the next part of this movie here. We go into Jesper's directory again, and now it can brew coffee. It says the README file is added. I am me being Jesper, I'm committing it so that it's in kdalgorithm.git file. I push it, well, now it's in kdalgorithm.git. Kiersey hears about this. So we'll go to Kiersey's subdirectory, do a pull. Everything is up to date, but Jesper made some changes. Let's go into the kdalgorithm subdirectory, because when Kiersey did the pull, she only got the version of my application, which was up to date. Nothing has changed there since she did her last push. Git will not go into the submodule and pull that. That would be rather unpleasant, wouldn't it? I mean, imagine that all of a sudden I would get a new version. So Jesper was messing up and leaving kdalgorithm in an uncompilable state. And now I was about to make Kiersey was about to make her really fancy release, but then the submodule got Jesper's broken, whatever. We do not want that. So Git will not go into that. I need myself. And that's what Kiersey will do here in the next step. She goes into the kdalgorithm, and now she calls pull, and we can see the changes coming out from there. We can do a git log, and we can see, yeah, now it can brew coffee too. Time to run a git status, and we can see that we got the kdalgorithms was modified. We'll add that. We will make a commit, and Kiersey has now committed version number 2. My application is capable of brewing coffee. Sorry for the interruption here. I just got a message from my boss that I'm not supposed to lie to you guys. So I'm sorry, Kiersey only committed a message locally. She didn't push it upstream. And as things happen in the real world, before she managed to push it upstream, Nuno comes around and pulls out the project. Let's see what that looks like. We'll cd into Nuno's subdirectory here, or cd out into the root. Nuno clones the application. That's version 1 that's able to sort that Kiersey just made. Nuno will cd into his application. He'll look into the kdalgorithm subdirectory and see nothing there. Oh yeah, I need to init recursively. So he does git submodule update minus recursive minus init. He got it initialized now. Does a git log. Nuno can see that he is on version 1 indeed. And then Kiersey gets into action. So Nuno will just freeze, and Kiersey will push the changes that she made, namely the version that is capable of brewing coffee. Nuno hears about this. So back to Nuno, what he wants those changes right away. So Nuno does a git pull, and lo and behold, it's going to be so awesome. Now he will have the version that is capable of brewing coffee. So Nuno does git log, and he sees that everything is cool. And at this stage, I'm sure that Nuno tries to compile, and he sees that there is no coffee in his application. So he does a git status, and it says modified. And Nuno goes but I didn't modify any changes. Definitely not kdalgorithms. I mean, for crying out loud, that's only Jesper that is capable of modifying kdalgorithms. And good, Nuno does that. Git diff. And git diff says subproject. And Nuno goes I don't understand any of this. Fortunately, Nuno Googles a bit and finds that there is a minus submodule switch to git diff that tells now it can brew coffee. But Nuno is not that stupid, so he realizes this says less than. That's usually your diff syntax or something that went away. But before we go in there, Nuno finds a settings that says git or diff.submodules to setting that to lock, so that git diff will show that all the time. And then Nuno likely asks a coworker, and the coworker points him to the documentation of git submodule. And I'll just read it for you because I'm sure you can't read yourself. So it says, update the registered submodule to match what the super project expects by cloning missing submodules. fetching missing commits in submodules and updating the working tree of the submodule. Okay, you can read, but did you understand what I read for you? What it says there is that what Nuno checked out was indeed version 2, but that didn't update his submodules. Is that a feature? Is that a bug? I don't know. It's at least annoying. What Nuno got was this weird setup where version 2 of the super projects, but the version 1 or the one that was only able to sort of KD algorithms. So what Nuno needs to do is to run this command that we've seen quite a few times by now, namely git submodule update -recursive -init. And now Nuno can do a git status and he can see, oh yeah, now everything is cool. But why did it say that Nuno had removed that file from the KD algorithm? Well, I was pondering a lot about that in the past. And here's what happened. So in my application, the one that he got from Kiersey, it had the revision of the submodule that was to be used encoded somewhere in the .git subdirectory. And of course it does, because as we saw previously, when you clone something, you do not necessarily get the head of the branch, you just get some SHA out of what you clone. And what Nuno had was something that wasn't that. So Git was just doing, okay, let me look at a diff between the two. And it found that Nuno's version was actually an older version than this one. But instead of saying, hey, you're behind me, it just told me, okay, so you're in a version where you do not want this commit anymore, for whatever reason. Jesper now comes around. He makes some more changes to KD algorithm. Let's see how that plays out. So we go to Jesper's directory. He will write and make a change here. Everyone need welding underwater. You know what welding is? I didn't before. I knew what it was in Danish, but not what the English word was. Welding is what you look at right now. Since I was a student, I had the impression that every application needs to be able to weld underwater. So my algorithm obviously is capable of doing that now. I'll add the README file, I'll commit the message, I'll push it to the server, and let's go over to Kiersey now. She obviously wants welding underwater too. And she found a switch to Git pool that's called --recurse -submodules. And she did that, and she's looking careful now, fetching submodule KD algorithm from blah, blah. And it went from master to Oregon master. And, but it says also already up to date. Because if she runs a git status now, she'll notice nothing has changed. But git show indicates we're just looking at the last commit. And the last commit says it's now capable of brewing coffee, and the submodule also do that. So she didn't get a new submodule. And of course she didn't. Just imagine that if you had 20 submodules and you could do a git pull -recurse and you got all of them updated, there is absolutely no use case in this world where that would make sense. So the git pull -recurse submodules is for the case where somebody just wants to get all the submodules to the state that they were at the time that they were committed, so that the submodules are updated to what the application expects. If Kiersey wants the new version, what she needs to do is, as before, go into KD algorithms, pull the new version. Now we got the new version, cd out, and she can see that, okay, now my KD algorithm has changed. She can add that directory, and she can commit, and she can push upstream. Nuno also wants it, and he tries the -recursive submodule. Let's see what that looks like. So first of all, Kevin comes around and makes a copy of Nuno's. Well, we know how people just copy other people's stuff. I just needed that in my script here. cd application Nuno. So now Nuno is in here. And he wants a version of what Kirsi had. So Nuno does a pool minus recurse submodules. And now you can see that Nuno gets a lot of stuff printed out here. We can see that from my application, I am fetching new data. And from the KD algorithms, I'm also fetching new data. And Nuno can do a git status and everything is up to date. You can do a git show, which shows the most latest commit. It says, well, we are now able to weld underwater, and it's the everybody need welding underwater of KD algorithms that he has. And that is awesome. Kevin comes around and he has found a switch that says, submodule recurse true. So he sets that one. He goes into his own directory here. He pulls, and you can see without the minus recursive, whatever, what did we say here? What did Nuno do? Minus recurse submodule. Rather than doing that, Kevin simply does a git pull and it does that for him. He can do a git status. Everything looks cool. He can do a git show. And yes, I have the latest version of everything. Remember, Nuno checked out a version at some point, and he was all of a sudden told that he had changes to the submodule despite that he didn't have any. Actually, that problem occurs a lot when you do something like git bisect. You're jumping around your history and looking for a change. And when you're jumping around, the submodules actually changes. And I for the longest time had that super annoying message about, hey, you updated your submodule. And for the first 10 times I asked on our internal chat server how to solve that. And then eventually I learned it. But let's look at that particular use case and try to understand in depth what is going on. So let's get rid of this submodule recurse flag again. And let's just look at what does the KD algorithm look like. KD algorithm at this stage is capable of sorting, it's capable of brewing coffee, and it's capable of welding underwater. What Kevin does now is that he'll simulate a git bisect. So he'll just go one step up, and when he does that, he will be told that, hey, there's modification to KD algorithms, because remember in the parent version, that was version 2 of the application, it didn't do the welding underwater. And if Kevin does the git status now, he can see that, yes, indeed, KD algorithm has changed. He can do a lock on KD algorithm, and it will tell him, but that is the right version, isn't it? That's exactly what I want. So why are you telling me something wrong here? And here it's getting really annoying. If you cd into KD algorithms and you do a login there, now you can see, well, that subdirectory had them all. And just for a second, keep your tongue straight in your mouth, as we say in Danish. In the subdirectory, that's where we have the correct checkout. So the subdirectory, if I look into the files, I will see that indeed my README file does tell me that I'm capable of welding underwater. But in the super directory or in the projects directory, that's git setup tells what I saw up here. Namely that in this version, I only have that. And that's why, again, we have this file being changed. Okay, remember the cue of this. Namely, this is the description that I read up to you before. Run git submodule update minus recursive, and just in case, minus init, to make sure that all of the submodules are checked out to the version that the super project in its expectation of the submodules. So we'll do that. And now we can do git status and everything looks good. Let's go back to the master. So I'm in the sub one, or in the head tilde version now. So I'll go back to master. It will complain as before. I will do a git submodule update. I'll run a git status and everything looks good. And just let's look at the KD algorithms. That looks good. We now have the 3 versions as we had. And just to be sure, let's go into the subdirectory and look there. Okay, all 3 versions. That is good too. So there was a flag submodule.recurse that we had on just a few commits ago, and I took off when I showed you this message here. Will that solve it for us? Yes, it will. We need another flag set too to avoid some problems. Let me show you. So I set this git config -- global submodule.recurse. I set that to true, but I definitely also need to set this one here, the global setting again, push.recurse submodules to no, because in my project at least, I found I tried that here in this demo here, and that's when I learned about the submodule recurse, and I said it and I was like, oh, this is awesome. Why hadn't I never thought of that before? So I said that and in my own setup, and I went back to work, and all of a sudden, when I tried to push something, it told me, sorry, you cannot push here. What happened was that I had a submodule that was checked out with HTTPS, so something I couldn't push to. And I'm glad I couldn't, because it tried to push to one of those submodules from somebody else. And I had no change, fortunately, but it tried to push nevertheless. And that's what this recurse submodule no says. Do not try and push recursively. Pushing should always be by demand, that you go into the submodule and you push that explicit, or you specify one of the many flags to actually do that at push time. We set that to no here, and now we try this git switching to another version, and git status shows me that there's no changes. Let me go into the KDE algorithm and look there. Actually, as you can see, now I'm back to the version that's capable of brewing coffee. That was what the head tilde version had, and I got that automatically updated, which I didn't when I tried before. So that's cool. We can that's what my index said. And now here in my subdirectory, I can see that it also has the right thing. Game over, player 1. So I had those two settings in my own setup for a while, and then eventually I just rolled them back and threw them out, simply because the benefit or the usefulness of them was overwhelmed by the fact that every time I pull something from a server to get somebody else's version, I would go into my submodules and pull them all, and going into my submodules and pulling them all, because I had, 5, 6 submodules from GitHub and elsewhere, that took a significant amount of time. And significant here might mean 10, 15 seconds, but it was just annoying. I knew that there was no changes there, and I still had to sit there and wait for those to be pulled. My cure is this alias that you saw before, fix submodules, and that alias, whenever I get somewhere and it's annoying and says, hey, you got modification, I'll just run git fix submodules. And what that does is that it go and update the submodules to what my super project believe they should be. And that's exactly what I want. That's it. Almost. Let me just do a new thing here. Let me just rephrase the key point for you to remember in this episode. It has been 23 minutes now, so there's been quite a bit. The key thing for you all the time to remember when you are thinking about submodules is that you have two versions. You have the version that is checked out in that submodule, and then you have the version that the project itself believe it should be. And when they get out of sync, that's when you'll see this error message saying, hey, you got that. Well, it's not an error message. You get this message saying, hey, you got a version that's different from what you actually have checked out. And that's with that in your brain. Submodules are all of a sudden much easier. At least for me, they were easier to understand. And I hope that helped you too. And until next time, have a great time.